Best game of the noon slate was out in Atlanta. Number 12 Clemson at Georgia Tech. Tigers rocking their longest win streak in this series, 9 straight games, but the Yellow Jackets on a 6-game home win streak. First play of the second quarter, 3-0 game. Jamal Haynes taking the handoff to pay dirt. 13-7 at the half for Georgia Tech on Haynes' 3rd touchdown of the season. Just under 10 minutes left to go in the third. Still 13-7. Cade Klubnik to Bryant Wesco Jr. Down the sideline, 73 yards. Clemson taking the lead. Second straight week doing so after trailing by double digits. Early fourth quarter action now. 3rd and goal from the 1. Haynes King with the quarterback keeper to put Georgia Tech back on top 19-14. They'd go for 2. And Malik Rutherford on the reverse connecting with Dean Patterson. So it's a touchdown game. Late action here ensuing. Clemson drives 2nd and goal on the Tech 2. Adam Randall, after a play was reviewed and reversed. 3rd straight game with a rushing touchdown. So an opportunity, though, for the hometown underdogs to come away with a win. Less than 30 seconds left to go on 3rd and 4. No timeouts. King down, setting up a 55-yard field goal attempt. This time winding down again. No timeout for Brent Key and his company. So setting up Aiden Burr. 5, 4, 3, snap, kick, and this would have been good from like 60 or more. And Georgia Tech wins it by 3. They start the season 3-0 for the first time since 2016. 7th straight home win, and more importantly, snaps that 9-game win streak against Clemson. And for the Tigers at 1-2, it matches their worst start in the last 20 years. They did so in 2014. However, that year did finish 10-3. Cade Klubnik, 15 of 26, 207 with a touchdown and an interception on the day. Did have a rushing touchdown to go with 62 on the ground. Hey there, folks. I'm Tommy Tran with Damien Harris, Bryant McFadden, and Danny Kanell to break down this game that was easily the most competitive and tightest game in the noon window so far on this Saturday. And Danny, I'm going to give you first word here. What stood out to you in terms of what the difference was outside of that last game-winning kick at the end?
I thought Georgia Tech was the physically tougher team, mentally tougher team. I thought Clemson got out-coached. And that late game execution was phenomenal. I don't think people realize you practice this a lot. And, you know, when you're leading up to games, you have a Toro call, a fire call, whatever name it is. And to get the kicker to come out, you don't have timeouts. And most people say, 17 seconds. I think they had 20-something seconds. So they had a little bit of time. But to get the kicker out there and for Burr to put it right through there like a nice little Tommy Tran drive down the fairway, nice subtle baby draw to come right back in there was phenomenal. And this, Brent Key's had some nice wins before. Last year at the end of the season, they beat Miami. This clearly, I think, is his biggest win as the coach at Georgia Tech. And it's really a statement for them to say, not only are we beating Clemson, but we could potentially beat anybody in the ACC now, which is massive for the Yellow Jackets.
And you know what I love about that is these big wins keep coming at home. And he's doing it in front of the home crowd. He's doing it in front of boosters, people who are trying to pour into this NIL collective, trying to give them more money so they can go out and get more Haynes Kings and other great players. Hell, even sign head coach Brent Key to another extension in the next coming years. But again, in all seriousness, the fact that they do this at home, there's something about protecting your house. We know that as football players, you do not let people come in your home and take what is yours. Georgia Tech saw today as an opportunity that was theirs. It wasn't for Clemson. They were not worried about the opponent. It did not matter who showed up on the field today. The game still probably would have been ugly. Haynes King still probably would have been running out there like he was bruised and battered just like he was. But at the end of the day, they still would have come out victorious just because they have the right mindset. They have the right level of execution. They've got the foundation. And most importantly, they've got the head coach to do it.
And because of this win today, they will be in the top 25 next week. And when you look at their schedule the rest of the way, they have Temple, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Pitt, and Georgia. So Georgia's the remaining team that's currently ranked. You look at the rest of the team, the rest of the games, guys, if they play their style of football and they're healthy, most importantly, they could be undefeated by November 28th when they play against the Bulldogs. And if they're undefeated, and if they, let's say hypothetically speaking, they lose that ball game, they still could be a playoff caliber team. They could still be a playoff caliber team when you look at everything else the rest of the way. Granted, if they take care of their business, but when we watch Georgia Tech going back to a year ago, seeing how they started this season, and their style of play, as long as Rocky Balboa is healthy and Haynes King, because he gets beat up every game. He's always limping every game, but he's always delivering also. If he is healthy, I mean, this could be a very, very story-filled season for the Yellow Jackets based on how well they play and the execution that you talked about, Danny.
They'll be favored in every game until that Georgia game. They'll be favored. Looking at that schedule, they'll be favored in every game. And they're playing with a lot of momentum. The good news about Rocky Balboa and Haynes King, their backup they really like. Aaron Philo,
he did well
who
last week.
Great last week against Gardner-Webb. So they feel pretty good. And that's a lot of schools don't have that luxury. If their quarterback goes down, they're in big, big trouble. And if Haynes King is banged up, he missed a couple games last year, they feel really good about that situation.
Georgia Tech 3-0 for the first time since 2016. I'm going to give each of you guys a quarterback. I'm going to give you Cade, but Haynes King, describe the effort that he gave out there today. And I've got a stat to back it up here, but just what you saw, because you know Brent Key so well and how he had his star out there.
Gladiator-like. You can't take them down no matter how many times you punch them. You know, we used to call heavyweight matchups like this, we used to call them fights. Like it's Tyson and Ali, right? Each person is going to get knocked down. Each person is going to throw haymakers. It's not about how many times you get knocked down. I hate to sound like a broken record or like an old folk song, but it's how many times do you get up? And I have not seen somebody yet knock Haynes King down and him not be able to get up, pull himself together, and put together a drive that instills confidence in his team, in his fans, and most importantly, in himself.
211 passing, 101 on the ground. Most games in terms of that plus a rushing TD for Georgia Tech in the last 30 seasons. Haynes King has 3, and there's only been 2 other instances in franchise history. On the flip side, Cade Klubnik, DK, what was the outlook on him today?
So, Cade Klubnik was one of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football, but there have been some numbers, and if you look deeper in the analytics and some of the advanced metrics out there, he has not played great against the better competition. I mean, it was well documented that, you know, Cade Klubnik and Clemson have been 0-4 now in their last 4 versus SEC teams. And the one knock or question mark I had coming into this game, because Clemson has had some injuries. He still doesn't have his favorite wide receiver in Antonio Williams. They still haven't really figured out a run game. My question for him was, can you put this team on your back? Can you be that difference maker for Clemson to win games when the chips are against you, or when you're facing a team that is at least equivalent in talent, and yet again, he's come up short? This is a harsh, harsh start for Clemson. I think it's one of the biggest disappointing starts in all of college football. The fact that they're 1-2 now, and not only, like, the loss to LSU wasn't an embarrassing loss, but it was one of those losses which, yet again, has done nothing to silence any of the critics of Clemson or for Cade Klubnik.
It has not happened often for the Clemson Tigers. A 1-2 start for just the second time in 20 years. The last time it happened was 2014. But to Danny's point again, catch out of the bag. Their struggles this season, a loss or a victory against LSU, and they lost there in that close game against Brian Kelly. Rebounded against Troy, but then losing here in Week 3 to Georgia Tech. We're going to hit a break here on HQ, talk a little bit more about the Clemson Tigers, who came into the season with national championship aspirations. Mackenzie Brooks will be joining us with just how big of a loss it was for Clemson when it comes to the CFP. Continues in Atlanta as Georgia Tech has now won 7 straight home games. Their last loss was against number 1 Georgia in 2023. But we're here to talk about Clemson. And boy, those CFP odds are plummeting, but just how much? Let's go to Mackenzie Brooks from Sportsline.
Yeah, things looked a little bit better before the actual season started here when we ran the numbers in the model to start the season. We had Clemson going in with a 62% chance to make the college football playoff. Obviously, that goes down not only because you lost to LSU, but also because you saw Miami beat Notre Dame in that Week 1 matchup as well. That brings you down to around a 32% chance. Then you play Troy, and you barely win, but we did assume you're going to win, so we only move you back up to around 35%. Now, after this loss here to Georgia Tech, that plummets them down to a 16% chance to make the college football playoff. Most of that 16% being you have to win the ACC championship, and you have to hope that some of these other teams start to fall as well, while Georgia Tech looks good. So really, they still, again, like they did last season, have the chance to win the conference championship. Brush all of this aside, but it's objectively hard to just win out no matter who's on your schedule, and that's also what it will require to get to the ACC conference championship, Tommy.
All right, Ken, certainly appreciate it. Again, taking a look at that Clemson Tigers schedule, 1-2 for just the second time the last 2 decades. The last time it happened was 2014. Back here with DK, BMAC, and Damien, just talking about this Clemson team, which, by the way, I just checked. So before the season started, 18-1 to win the national championship, which was top 10 among programs. After this loss to Georgia Tech, now 55-1. BMAC, I'm going to give you first word, because all I heard from spring ball and fall camp was that this was not just an ACC championship type team, but this was a national championship contender.
Yep.
Did you agree with that going into the season, and what has changed in the first 3 weeks?
Yeah, I saw a world where Clemson could win the national championship because of the experience they had at the quarterback position. Cade Klubnik is one of the more experienced quarterbacks in all of college football. You talk about Dabo Swinney, a very, very highly talented defensive line, a line with a bunch of potential NFL pros, quality guys in the secondary. You know, they had to answer some things in the backfield, but we all felt like they would find a way to get guys that could run the football. And then the season started. And we saw a letdown type of performance week 1, but then that was against LSU. Defenses really dominated that ball game. Now, when you have a letdown week 1, we think week 2, playing against a lesser opponent in Troy, that's a get-right moment. No, they got wrong. They got wrong. They struggled in that ball game. So now it's something going on with Clemson where the quarterback is not looking like the quarterback. He's not comfortable. He's not going through his progressions. They can't run the football, and their defense has been vulnerable in all 3 levels. So they still, realistically speaking, they still have an opportunity to get to the playoffs. They can't afford to have any more ACC losses. They need help, and they have to win the ACC championship. All of those things could become a reality. But based on what we've seen in 3 weeks of play, it's hard to believe they can actually make those things happen because they're not a good team right now. They have good players, but they're not a good team.
So B-Man, hold on. Before you get to me, Tommy, I just want to make sure I heard this right. So Clemson is asking for help, not hell, right?
Yeah, they need help.
Clemson don't need help right now.
No, they don't have enough of that. They need help. They want to need a lot of help.
In all caps. Danny, I'm going to give you that schedule that BMAC's talking about, potential opportunities for Clemson to still get it. But Damien, I'm going to come to you because, again, when you're on a team that has high expectations, whether it's from the outside or the inside, I think even internally, if you're not making it public, you have that ACC championship in mind. You have the CFP in mind, national championship in mind. Take me through an expectation of a team that's supposed to be very good here on a program like Clemson coming into a season that hasn't gone the way that they've wanted so far.
Well, it's disappointing, first and foremost, because I want to speak on something that Danny said. He said that Georgia Tech outcoached Clemson today. Now, for Dabo Swinney, as highly respected as you are, for the national championships you won, for the heights that you've taken the program of Clemson to, you should not be getting outcoached by a Georgia Tech football team. I will sit here and rave about Brent Key all day long, but Dabo Swinney, there is nothing in this game that you have not seen. So at the very least, coming out of a loss in a game where you probably should have won, we shouldn't say, oh, well, you got out-coached. Your players got outplayed by a team that was hungrier than them. Not the fact that Brent Key just had a better game plan than you. Not that their offensive coordinator put together a better offensive game plan than you did. Your defensive coordinator didn't have the right game plan to stop Haynes King from running the football. When you turn on Georgia Tech's football tape, what do you see? Haynes King running the football. If you can't stop it, if you don't have a plan for it, you're not prepared. So as players, and you go into a game and you're not prepared for it, well, what does that fall on? That falls on coaching. So I'm very, very disappointed in my newfound friend, Dabo Swinney, as we got close at the end of last season, as you guys know. But I'm very disappointed because I expected more out of them. I'm not necessarily going to say I put them in preseason ACC championship talks or national championship talks. I was waiting to see what they were going to come out and look like. And so far, we can all say that we've been disappointed.
Maybe Dabo knew something, because all summer long he was like, don't talk about us like that. Don't give us all this praise, Danny. What did you make of Dabo Swinney? And then seeing so far through 3 games his program subpar.
I think this is one of the biggest disappointments in college football. Like for the expectation, what they had returning, specifically at quarterback. But remember, they went out and got Tom Allen, who was one of the more respected defensive coordinators. They have guys on the defensive line that is supposed to be first-round talent, and for them to start 1-2 it's just disappointing. That's all it is. I will say this: people have buried Clemson before, including last season, and they found their way in. I do think there's a chance if they run the table and they're 10-2, they better root for LSU and they better root for Georgia Tech, that they still could be an at-large team. If LSU ends up winning the SEC and they lose by a touchdown to them at home, I don't think that's an egregious loss. And if Georgia Tech does take care of business and they're in an ACC title game, I don't think that's an egregious loss. I thought Notre Dame was done last year after they lost to Northern Illinois. That was a much worse loss, and they kind of figured out. They got the ball rolling. And Dabo's had one of the best cultures in college football in his entire tenure. But even specifically, since they've kind of dropped off by their standard, they've never thrown the towel in on the team, in the locker room. They've never thrown in the towel. I don't expect it to go any differently this year, but they've got to figure some things out. They also were supposed to have one of the best wide receiving corps. And Bryant Wesco lived up to his end of the bargain. TJ Moore did not. Antonio Williams has been hurt. And they still have to figure out the running back position. They've got to figure out if it's Adam Randall. They've got to do a better job running the football, because Cade Klubnik running it 17 times.
Yeah.
We saw him take some nasty hits. You start worrying about, can he endure that? So they have to run the table, though. I mean, it's not an easy schedule for them to do that. They still have to go to South Carolina, a team they lost to at home last year. They still have to beat Florida State, a team that looks a lot better this season. Duke, SMU, they still have some pretty tough outs on the schedule.
B-Mac, I'm going to give you final word here. Again, they're going to go back to Death Valley and regroup as a team. How do you accomplish that? What are you focusing on this week as you get ready for your next game?
Well, the great thing that Danny gave us was this was their scenario last year when everyone said Clemson is done. They got back to the basics. Attention to detail was overly emphasized. They played a Clemson brand of football, and guess what? They got into the playoffs. So they've been down this road before, but this is a different timing in terms of being in September, and now you're in desperation mode. But they still have an opportunity. We all talked about it's going to be a difficult task, but they still have life. They just got to win out. And they need a little bit of help. It's been 3 weeks of play. There's a lot of football left to be played. They're going to need some help, but all of that means nothing if they don't take care of their business, get back to the basics, get healthy, get some guys healthy, and play a Clemson style of football, man, and just take one game at a time.
I gave out those national championship odds. It would certainly have dropped for the Clemson Tigers. We end here with the ACC odds after what we saw today out in Atlanta. And boy, Miami's the betting favorite at north of 2-1, but Georgia Tech at plus 430 after everything they've been up to, including a 3-0 start and a win against Clemson at home today.